My name is Renay Allen, and I am here to officially welcome home the abolitionist poet James Monroe Whitfield. He was born here in Exeter in 1822 and published a book in 1853 entitled America and Other Poems. It's still in print today. First, let me give you a snapshot of James's life, and then I will propose to you the effect that living in Exeter may have had on him. James Monroe Whitfield lived with his family on Whitfield's Lane, which was later renamed to Elliott Street. When James was 9, his dad died, and his family moved out of town. When James was 18, he was living in Buffalo, New York, working as a barber and writing poems. In those days, he was friends and colleagues with famous black abolitionists like Martin Delany and Frederick Douglass. In fact, many of James's poems were printed in Douglass's newspaper, the North Star, or read aloud during his speeches. In later days, though, James and Douglass parted ways over philosophical differences regarding the black immigration issue. In 1861, James moved his wife Frances and their 3 sons to San Francisco, one of the places he had targeted for African concentration after he discarded the idea of black immigration. James was quite famous at that time due to his activism and his book. He became the Grand Master of the California Order of Prince Hall Masons, and in 1871, when he died at only 49 years old, probably of heart disease, he was buried in the Masonic Cemetery in San Francisco. If you are interested in undertaking a study of James, I suggest you read the 2011 book entitled The Works of James M. Whitfield, and it has collected letters and works. All right, now let me back up a little and tell you about James and his family in Exeter. Just after the Revolutionary War, Exeter had the highest percentage of blacks in the state of New Hampshire. It was almost 5%. Back then, there were about 2,000 white people here and 80 black people. Today, that would mean about 700 black Exeter citizens. Now, many black revolutionary soldiers settled in Exeter after the war and raised families. But by the time their children had grown, Exeter was not so welcoming. And by the time their grandchildren had grown, Exeter was hostile. Mobs disrupted abolitionist meetings at churches here. An 18-year-old boy was kidnapped out of his home on Drinkwater Road and sold. So many blacks either left town or went to the poor farm. And Exeter's once thriving black community was extinguished, and then it was disremembered. Now, James Whitfield was born between that 2nd and 3rd generation. Before he was born, it was his cousin, James Hall, who was kidnapped out of his house on Drinkwater Road by an Exeter resident named Wedgwood. His mom, Rhoda, and his younger sister tried to fight, but Wedgwood bound the boy in chains and hightailed it to Newburyport, where he put him on a boat the next day for New Orleans, and James was sold into slavery. What happened to that poor boy, that poor Exeter boy, remains a mystery to this day. Wedgwood claimed he had a right to do this. The boy owed him $4. James Hall's dad, Revolutionary War veteran Jude Hall, was not home at the time. But he spent the remainder of his life running from lawyer to judge with no result. Jude's Pond is located on 70 Drinkwater Road, and it is the site of this heartbreaking incident. Many of you have probably used the walking trails near there with no idea of its significance in Exeter's history. As the author of Lies My Teacher Told Me says, the answer to feel bad history is not feel good history, but honest and inclusive history. I submit that there is some work to do in this town to restore and to make visible honest and inclusive history. Now, Whitfield's 200th birthday is in April 2022. I propose we celebrate him and the historic Black community of Exeter, that we use our talents to make visible again that which was made invisible. So in closing, I am pleased to tell you that along with 2 recent articles by historians, one of the very first accomplishments towards this goal is the mural that you see right here, painted by students from Exeter High School, Celia, Strand, and Clarissa Gowing. In just a moment, they will come out here and tell you about it, but first, Michael Cameron Ward will read Whitfield's poem, America, aloud from the town hall stage for possibly the first time. Michael Cameron Ward is the author of A Colored Man in Exeter, a true story about his father's work in Exeter in the 50s and 60s. He is currently at work on a second book. He has his books in the room at the back there, and I encourage you to meet him there after this presentation. And now I present to you a historical moment for Exeter. Michael Cameron Ward reading James Monroe Whitfield's poem, America. Welcome home, James.
America, it is to thee, thou boasted land of liberty. It is to thee I raise my song, thy land of blood and crime and wrong. It is to thee, my native land, where from whence has issued many a band, to tear the black man from his soil and force him here to delve and toil. Chained on your blood-bemoistened sod, cringing beneath a tyrant's rod, stripped of those rights which nature's God bequeathed to all the human race, bound to a petty tyrant's nod because he wears a paler face. Was it for this that freedom's fires were kindled by your patriot sires? Was it for this they shed their blood on hill and plain, on field and flood? Was it for this that wealth and life were staked upon that desperate strife, which drenched this land for 7 long years with blood of men and women's tears? When black and white fought side by side upon the well-contested field, turned back the fierce opposing tide, and made the proud invader yield. When wounded side by side they lay, and heard with joy the proud hurrah from their victorious comrades say that they had waged successful war. The thought ne'er ever entered their brains that they endured those toils and pains to forge fresh fetters, heavier chains for their own children, in whose veins should flow that patriotic blood so freely shed on field and flood. Oh no, they fought as they believed for the inherent rights of man, but mark how they have been deceived by slavery's accursed plan. They never thought, when thus they shed their heart's best blood in freedom's cause, that their own sons would live in dread under unjust, oppressive laws. That those who quietly enjoyed the rights for which they fought and fell would be the framers of a code that would disgrace the fiends of hell? Would they have looked with prophet's ken down to the evil present time, seen freeborn men uncharged with crime, consigned into a slaver's pen, or thrust into a prison cell where thieves and murderers to dwell? While that same flag whose stars and stripes had been their guide through freedom's wars, as proudly waved upon the pen of dealers in the souls of men. Or who could tell, or who could the shades of all the dead who fall beneath that starry flag visit the scenes where they once bled, on hill and plain, on vale and crag? By peaceful brook or ocean strand, by inland lake or dark green wood, where'er the soil of this wide land was most moistened by their patriot blood? And then to survey the country o'er, from north to south, from east to west, and hear the agonizing cry, ascending up to God on high, from the western wilds to ocean shore, the fervent prayer of the oppressed, the cry of helpless infancy, torn from the parents' fond caress by some base tool of intriguity, and doomed to woe and wretchedness. The indignant wail of fiery youth, its noble aspirations crushed, its generous zeal, its love of truth, trampled by tyrants in the dust. The aerial piles which fancy reared and hope too bright to be enjoyed have passed and left his young heart seared and all his dreams of bliss destroyed. The shriek of virgin purity, doomed to some libertine's embrace, should rouse the strongest sympathy of each one of the human race. And weak old age, oppressed with care, as he reviews the scene of strife, puts up to God a fervent prayer to close his dark and troubled life. The cries of fathers, mothers, wives, severed from all their hearts hold dear, and doomed to spend their wretched lives in gloom and doubt and hate and fear. And manhood too, with soul of fire, and arm of strength and smothered ire, stands pondering with brow of gloom upon his dark, unhappy doom. Whether to plunge into battle strife, and buy his freedom with his life, and with start heart and weapon strong, pay back the tyrant wrong for wrong, or wait the promised time of God, when his almighty ire shall wake, and smite the oppressor in his wrath, and hurl red ruin in his path, and with the terrors of his rod cause adamantine hearts to quake. Hear Christian rise in bondage still, beneath his brother Christian's rod, and pastors trample down at will the image of a living God. While prayers go up in lofty strains, and pealing hymns ascend to heaven, the captive toiling in his chains, with tortured limbs and bosom riven, raises his fettered hand on high, and in the accents of despair, to him who rules both earth and sky, puts up a sad and fervent prayer. To free him from this awful blast of slavery's bitter, galling shame, though his portion should be cast with demons in eternal flame. Almighty it is, they call, this land of liberty and law, part of its sons in baser thrall than Babylon or Egypt saw. Worse scenes of rapine, lust, and shame than Babylonian ever knew are perpetrated in the name of God, the holy, just, and true. And darker doom than Egypt felt may yet repay this nation's guilt. Almighty God, thy aid impart, and fire anew each faltering heart, and strengthen every patriot's hand who aims to save our native land. We do not before thy throne with carnal weapons drenched in gore, although our blood has freely flown in adding to the tyrant's store. Father, before thy throne we come, not in a panoply of war, with pealing trump and rolling drum and cannon booming loud and far, striving in blood to wash out blood, though wrong to seek redress for wrong, while thou art holy, just, and good, the battle is not to the strong. But in the sacred name of peace, of justice, virtue, love, and truth, we pray and never mean to cease, till weak old age and fiery youth, in freedom's cause their voices raise, and burst the bonds of every slave, till north and south and east and west, the wrongs we bear shall be redressed. sometime around 1862, my great-granduncle Clifford was sold off from his plantation and disappeared into Kentucky, and we never heard from him afterwards.
Very well read. Goodness. Now I'd like to present to you Celia Strand and Clarissa Gowing and their mural.
Thank you, Renay, for inviting us to speak here for James Monroe Whitfield's talk and poetry reading and to celebrate his 197th birthday. I'm Clarissa Gowing.
And I'm Celia Strand.
And we are happy to present our finalized project celebrating the Black history of Exeter. We'd like to thank the members in our community who helped us along the way, such as Mr. Krause, our advisor throughout the process, Richard Haynes, who helped significantly in the artistic side of the project's development, Ray Neal, a student who offered critical insight into the project as it progressed, Renay Ellen Hitzrott, who helped us narrow down the scope into what the product of our project could be and provided us with the mural board, and the Racial Unity team for providing us the Racial Unity Walk that gave us the idea for this in the first place, and last but not least, the Exeter Historical Society, which gave us the research and tools to build our project upon.
We started this project with the idea of educating the public of Exeter about the forgotten history of this town and to show them a few things. We didn't want to shatter everyone's idea of Exeter, but we didn't want the venerated image to be the only one out there. For instance, we have this glitter and gold idea of the Ioka, which is the iconic symbol of the town, but in 1950 it showed the movie Birth of the Nation, which glorified the KKK and helped the terrorist group's resurgence. We also wanted to debunk the dominant image that a lot of people have of historical African Americans focused around slavery and misery, which wasn't always true. For instance, of the 3 men we represented, only one of them was a slave. This isn't to say they didn't face adversity, as that is part of the story we are trying to share, but we want to make it clear that there were many things to be proud of in the lives of Black Americans that go untold and should not be left out of the narrative any longer.
So I'm guessing everyone's wondering what the project actually is. It's a mural depicting 3 African American men who lived in Exeter throughout its history. So first, on the far left is Jude Hall, who was a runaway slave and fought in the Revolutionary War until he settled down in Exeter and started a family of 12 children with his wife, Rhoda Paul. Then in the middle is James Monroe Whitfield, for whom we are here today, a prolific writer in the 19th century who wrote about his experience as a Black man. And finally, there's Freeman Wallace, a Civil War veteran and Exeter resident who is known as a genial, worthy man, is highly esteemed by fellow veterans and other friends, according to his obituary featured in the Exeter newsletter in 1916. We chose these 3 men to represent in the mural because we thought they epitomized different eras, different struggles, and different triumphs of this history. Underneath each segment of the mural, there are vignettes giving a glimpse into what the lives of each of these men might have been like. The vignettes are fictional pieces depicting scenes that were created without specific accounts of incidences, but they were written based on information from their lives. Also, all the writing is done through the lens of current societal stances and therefore cannot be completely unbiased from our point of view, but they're as accurate and unfiltered as possible. When we presented the mural to Exeter High School in February, after we finished it, we had students take parts of his poem, America, to write blackout poetry with, and we got some really interesting poems back, which have been posted on the website along with a newspaper article about us and the mural.
Our project is called Represent Exeter, which has 2 meanings. One is to represent Exeter, a diverse community which has, in some aspects, been misinterpreted, and in ways we're working to address today, still neglects to tell the full history. More often than not, Black history is left out of the textbooks or seen in fragments, as if the history of people of color is not as important as white history. There is material missing from our history books and discourse of the past, and we wanted to change that. Although the Black community is not very big in Exeter, starting at only 5% in 1776 and now being less than 0.5%, That does not mean their stories are less important and should be left in the shadows. The second piece of it is represent, in which we represent these stories in an accessible way for audiences to perceive them. We know that it's often hard to become interested in stories or a general topic when you have to sift through old artifacts to do research on your own. No offense to the historians in the audience. So we did the work for you, or more accurately, the Exeter Historical Society did a lot of the hard work research-wise, and we represented all the information so it is easier to become interested in these stories. Now I'm sure you're wondering how this mural was created and how we came up with this concept. By talking to members of the community, we formed a rough sketch that would come to be what you see before you today. We looked at Richard Haynes' artistry and work and developed an idea. We read and researched our own town and its history left out of the school curriculum, and we took our respective strengths and created a project that includes written and artistic components. Looking at the mural itself, you can see the posture in these men are shown with pride for the lives they led and the accomplishments they made through perseverance, vitality, and honor. The colors used are to create dimension for the figures. By creating a faceless artwork, it compels the audience to learn about who each of these men are as people by learning their names and their history rather than focusing on their appearance. The background is a collage of James Monroe Whitfield's poem, America, which we wanted to help to add as an element of unity to tie them together through Whitfield's own words.
Overall, we wanted to teach people about these men's spectacular lives that have been lost to time. We wanted to educate our town about the reality of our history and show them that although we have improved, we still have room to grow. And although our past is far from perfect, we can always work towards having a better future. We wanted to show Exeter that although history forgot their faces, it's our job to remember their names. Thank you.